Hello there and welcome. My name is Michael Fudge. I'm your lead instructor for IST256, Applications Programming for Information Systems. I am very glad you've enrolled in this course, and I'm excited to teach computer programming to you. In this course, we will learn Python, a very popular programming language. It has a wide variety of applications, from web all the way over to data science, and everywhere in between, if you will. The language is best suited for dealing with data and connecting to other services on the web, which we'll do a lot of in this course. Learning to program does not come easy, so be ready for a challenge. It takes patience, persistence, and a heck of a lot of practice to learn how to code. Programming opens up opportunities to create and innovate and improve the lives of others. I promise you the rewards will be great, for once you learn to code, you'll never look at the computer the same way again, and the things you'll be able to do with the computer and make the computer do for you is going to be impressive. I'm very excited to take you on this journey, and I really enjoy seeing you grow as a programmer throughout the semester, as I have done with many other students before. Yes, I'm your professor, but I'd like you to consider me more as a guide. See, you're going to learn and discover a lot on your own, and we're here to build confidence and provide reassurances along the way. I will use a well-tested approach in this course. You are standing on the shoulders of the classmates before you, and my experience teaching computer programming for over a decade to students who are not computer scientists. This course, as it exists today, is a direct result of my and their successes, failures, and of course, your feedback. And consider this, the course that it is tomorrow will be based on the feedback that we get from you this semester. There are some basic principles that I've learned in my years of teaching, the most important being that when you learn to code, it requires routine practice. So this course is set up in a way to force you to practice several times a week, both in class and outside of it. You are rewarded with points when you practice. If you practice and practice in a timely manner, you'll get points for that. Timely practice is important because falling behind drastically reduces the chance of your success. And I've seen this over and over again. So it's important to not fall behind. There's 3 hours a week that we're meeting together in class, and it's expected that you'll spend about 6 hours a week outside of class. I'd like you to take that 6 hours a week and spread it out over 3 days. And this is what our forced design practice routine will do, is it will take and make sure that you have something to do on 3 days of the week that are not the 2 days of the week that you're meeting with us. So in total, there'll be 5 days a week where you will be practicing programming, and this is what will make you successful. While that might seem like a lot, I think you'll see that once you get in the habit, it's a very effective use of your time. Part of what makes this course unique are all of the different tools that we use to not only learn to code, but also turn in our code, participate in class, and ask questions. I'd like to take a minute and overview those tools now. The page before you shows you all the different tools that we use in the course. Each of these tools brings a unique set of value to the course itself. So first of all, let's start with the obvious here, Blackboard. And in our Blackboard course, mainly we'll use Blackboard for communication with the student through announcements and then taking exams. And your exams will appear in this exam section here. But one thing I do want to emphasize about Blackboard is if you go to the course website, which is where we just were, and on the home page of the course website there is a What's Due section, and down here it has all of the different assignments and their due dates for every particular assignment, and that is related to the methods of evaluation on the syllabus. Here, if you look at the Z1 through Z10, and then you go back to that What's Due, and you can find, there's Z2, there's Z1. So you can find the date of when everything is due. And that will also be in Blackboard. So if you go down here to My Grades, you will see all of those due dates have already been posted into Blackboard. The other thing that I'll mention about Blackboard is whenever we give you a grade, there is always some feedback to go with that grade. For instance, you'll see this little bubble next to the grade, and if you click on the bubble, you will see the feedback. Okay, next on the tools list is Jupyterhub. So Jupyterhub is our programming environment, and you bring up Jupyterhub and you have to log in with your NetID here, like this, and mine's already set in there. And then you have to pick which image you want to use, and we're not in this class, we're in this one, IST256 Python Jupyterhub is what we want. And then it will give you your own copy of that runs as its own computer, if you will, in the cloud. And then now you're pointing to that computer. And where your code is if you go to library and then our course, and then if you go to your semester, you will see a lessons folder, and then all of the code is in here. Everything that you need is available in any of these particular folders. So if I were to go back here and go to the home page, and let's pick on lesson 3, conditionals, right? And then lesson 3, this is what's all what we want to know about conditionals. If I go back over here and go to lesson 3, conditionals, you can see I have the slides that we use in large group, the code that I demonstrate in large group, the lab that you must complete for an assignment, the end-to-end example that I do at the end of large group, the small group assignment, and the homework assignment. So everything that you need is in this folder. It's all there. And you can add your own stuff. You could take your own notes and put them right in here. You could just go File, New, and then make a new Python notebook, and you can put your own notes right in here as you're working. And then that, my notes, call it whatever you want, and then that would get saved. Let me close it. You'd see that there it is, my notes. So you can save things as you go, work along as you go, and that will always be there for you. And that's, again, each of these different folders for each of the different lessons in the course. There's 13 lessons over here, and there's 13 folders right here. That's Jupyterhub. Next on the course link, we have Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams, if I click on this link here, will pop up our Teams chat, or you can ask questions. So you might be saying, well, what do I use Teams for? Well, there's a lot of very useful things you can use Teams for. First and foremost, if I go back to Blackboard and then I go to help, obviously you can contact us for office hours, but if you have a general Python question or a question about the course, the great place to ask it is in Teams, because when you ask the question in Teams, it hits everyone. It hits me, it hits your small group instructor, it hits all the students. I'm sure if you have the question, somebody else has the question. Also, if it's a general Python question, like you have an error or you want clarification on if, you might find a classmate that's able to help you in Teams. So don't restrict your question to just your professor. You might want to ask a classmate, I got a syntax error, you know what the syntax error is. You'd be surprised how many other people in the class can help you. We're trying to build a community here, and one of the ways to build a community is to use technology, and we're going to use Microsoft Teams as our technology to community build questions around Python. The nice thing about it is it's searchable. You can go up here and search for something and then find a particular subject that has that text in it. So that's Microsoft Teams. Next up on the tools list is Poly. So Poly is an app that I wrote that allows you to do some very simple polling. And while we're in large group, there's 150 to 200 of you, and it's very difficult for me to figure out if you're sort of getting the gist of the lecture or having any challenges or difficulties with the content. So one of the ways I'll do that is I'll ask you a question. For example, here is a slide from the large group lecture. You see these slides are just, in a browser. And this particular slide asks a question. It says, on which line number is the Boolean expression true? And it has A, B, C, or D. And so you would go on your phone to Poly, or you could use it on your laptop. It doesn't matter what. And you log in with your NetID and password. And then when you log in, you can vote. And I have already voted. It says I selected A. So for example, I reset the poll, so now I can pick and vote. So you might see this on your screen here. And on your phone, you might say, well, I think the answer is C. And then on your phone, you would pick C. That's basically how we use polling to keep you engaged in class. It's kind of fun. Next up on our tools list is the Severance Textbook. So there are two textbooks in the class. There's Zybooks, and then there's Severance. And the Zybooks textbook is graded. The Severance textbook is not. That doesn't mean it's not a good textbook. It's actually an excellent textbook. A professor at University of Michigan, his name is Charles Severance. He wrote a book, Python for Everyone. Here's the book. It's open source. And it's available in a variety of formats. You can download it in Kindle, PDF, EPUB. There's even an interactive version. This is a version I linked to, the interactive version on Trinket.io. And what's nice about the interactive version is it has little spots where you can run code and see. You can run Python right in the browser and get a feel for what happens. Okay, so that's really neat. It's yet another tool at your disposal so that you can better learn Python. I think what you're going to find is certain tools you're going to gravitate towards more than others, and that's fine. It's really about giving you an arsenal of things to choose from, and then from that arsenal you decide what it is that's going to help you be the most effective learner that you can be. For example, if I go to the content section of the website and then I pick on a particular subject like strings, you'll see that there's the required readings from the Zybook and Severance, and we'll talk about these videos in a bit. And then at the end, under more resources, there are some more videos, and some of these videos are from Severance as well. So in his large MOOC class that he conducts online through Coursera, he has released those videos to YouTube, and they're very helpful videos. They've helped thousands of people learn how to program in Python. We'll use the Zoom tool to conduct large groups, and also if you have a section where it's completely online, you'll use Zoom as well. So Zoom is available through Blackboard. You can download the Zoom client at the link that I gave you here, but you will access the Zoom meetings through Blackboard. If you go into Blackboard, you'll see it says Large Group Sessions. You go there, and you will see all of the pre-scheduled Zoom meetings are here. And when you need to join a meeting, you hit start, and that will begin the Zoom meeting. And most of the time, the Zoom meetings is a screen share. And on the screen share, we'll have the Zoom chat, and you will be able to put your questions in the Zoom chat. You're encouraged to do that, to participate in the Zoom by adding to the Zoom chat, and it's monitored in the large group. And as you ask questions, it guides me. All right, the last tool on our tools list is the Zybooks, and the Zybooks is an interactive textbook. The interactive textbook allows us to watch what it is that you're doing in the book and when you're doing it and for how long. And based on your engagement with the book, you get a grade. And it grades out of 2 points, so it's not a lot of points, but they're easy points. And for any given chapter, what you see in front of you is what was assigned to you, because there's actually more sections than this, and I can assign exactly what I want. Some aspects of the chapter are optional. As you'll see, it says optional, and those will not be included in the grade. And basically how you get graded is if you were to go into the chapter and read the chapter, you'll see there are parts that say participation activity, and you complete the questions on the participation activity, and it'll tell you whether you're correct or incorrect. And if you're incorrect, you can always fix it. You don't have to get them all correct. It's probably not a bad idea to get them all correct, but the point is to participate, and you're graded on your use of these participation activities. So that is a big part of it. Now, there are some challenge activities. Those you can skip. I don't see any in this particular section, but they're usually labeled blue. They're blue and they're labeled challenge instead of participation. Those ones you don't have to do. Those are usually like kind of coding along types of examples, and those are not what we're interested at this point. Mainly the point of the Zybook is to expose you for the very first time to the subject, so that when you come to large group, you're ready to ask questions and you have some kind of clue as to what we're going to do. Primarily, our coding will be done in Jupyter Notebook. Really, the Zybook is just a resource Like I said, there's many resources in the class. This is just one of the resources that we use to sort of prepare you for programming. Now, last but not least in course links is the link you're looking at itself, IST256.com, the website. What's great about this website is the syllabus is on here. There's the course content for any given week. You can get access to the readings. There will be a large group lecture. Once the Zoom is done, I take the recording, I process it, and I upload it here so you can go back and watch the large group lecture again. If you are in the process of doing your lab and you have questions or need help, there's the lab walkthrough. The lab walkthrough takes you through some of the more sticky parts of the lab. When I get to the next part where I talk about the labs and the homework, I'll be sure to mention this again. Same thing with homework advice. There's a video here that will give you tips on how to get through some of the more tricky parts of the homework. And I think you'll find that these are very useful. Again, the homework and the labs, we want you to do them right, but we also want you to learn from them. And so one of the ways that we can guarantee that you're learning from them is if we're okay with giving you hints. Especially if it helps you to sort of figure it out and get through it the right way and learn it. The other thing about the website is you can search the whole thing. So I can go up here to search and I can type in exam. Maybe I got a question about some exams. And I go in there and there's some information about the exams right off the syllabus. You can search for it. Same thing with project, or maybe if you're searching for something specific like functions, you can come up and it'll give you some information about functions here. As we said before, there are 2 days a week where you're in class, and there will be 3 pieces of work that you'll do as practice outside of class. So let's discuss the 5 things that you'll be doing each and every week in order to build those good practice habits. It starts with a reading that's due Monday before class. And then we have class on Monday in our large group sessions in Zoom. Then on Tuesday, outside of class, you'll have to complete a lab. Then on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on which small group you're in, you'll have your small group session. And finally, the week concludes with a homework that's due outside of class on Saturday. And that's how we get you to practice 5 days a week. The reading assignments must be completed before large group. To find the reading assignments, all you need to do is go to the course website and pick the lesson that you're currently in. And it'll say required reading/viewing, and there's your assignments. Some of them are the Severance reading. Some of them are the Zybook reading. The content section takes you to both. On Monday, in large group lecture, we have a slideshow with code demo. You interact with me in large group by participating in polls in which I show the results on the screen, and by asking questions about things that you don't understand or just have general questions about in the chat. In addition to slides, there are also code demos. The code demos help enforce the concepts from both the reading and the slides, as well as provide a degree of interaction, as you can ask me to write some code that you would like to see execute. It's really important that you don't try to code along with me in large group. That's sort of not the point, and that's not where you need to be right now at that phase in learning. Besides, all the code that I write in large group, when you log back into Jupyterhub after the session is over, you will see a file large group, and that will have all the code that I wrote in that particular session. So there's no need to try to code along and catch up. You're better off sort of soaking it in, absorbing, trying to anticipate what's going to happen, and then sort of asking questions about it and engaging that way. Don't get too many of your senses involved at this phase of the game. We don't want to be trying to read and type and do and understand. It's just good enough to sort of read and understand at this point. As part of your first foray into getting your hands on a keyboard and typing some code and practicing programming the concepts that we learned in the week, you will be required to do a lab on Tuesday after large group. So the lab is a mix of instructions as well as some sample code that you can execute and see what happens. as well as, again, some little lessons and some narratives that walk you through. A lot of it is reinforcement from what you've seen in the Zybook and the lecture, and reinforcement is okay and duplication is okay because now is your first opportunity to learn it within the context of Jupyterhub, which is the tool that you're going to be using to do your programming and coding in. So it is, even though it's the same, it's very different. Now, sometimes in the lab, as you get further on, as you're doing all these things, you'll get down to a part where you actually, they're called U codes. And in the U codes, you actually have to write some code or change some code. When you're in these U codes, you may struggle. You may have some challenges, like you might not know what to do or how to complete it or anything like that. So one thing to note is for every one of these U codes, there is a video that you can access on the website. For that particular lesson, you'll see that it says Lab Walkthrough, and this video will be available to you. And the video will walk you through each part of the lab that requires you to write code. So if you get stuck and you don't know what to put here and you're at a loss, you can always consult the U code. And the U code will sort of walk you through it, and then you can then type it yourself. We're giving away the answers, but that's not the point. The point is for you to sort of learn as you're doing, and then in the process, type, right? And then type the answer in for yourself, run it, and then get that satisfaction knowing that you got something working. That is the point. Now, when you get through the entire lab, at the bottom, there's a section called Metacognition. And in this section, you should do two things. The first thing that you should do is rate your comfort level with the material. So 1 means you have no idea what you're doing, you need extra help, maybe you need to start sourcing a tutor, etc. 4 means that you can do it on your own and probably go through and explain it to other people that might need help. This is great because it helps identify the stronger and the weaker students and maybe ways that we can pair them up. So all you do is you double click on this line, and then below the line you put your number. I'm a 3, for example. And then down here it says questions and comments. As you do the lab, you may have questions. You may have things that you thought of that you want to ask the professor. You should be writing those down as you do your lab, and then you should put those questions down here. Why did I do this? Or how do I do that? Those are very important because your professor will look at those and then ask you to ask those questions in your small group. Usually there's about 10 minutes in the beginning of small group for questions. And while I personally review the questions and don't bring them up myself, I expect you to bring them up as part of your learning responsibility, bringing up the questions in small group. When your lab is done, you hand it in by running the code here. So you just run this cell in there, and then it tells you you're about to make a submission, and then you hit this button to submit the lab for a grade. When your professor grades the lab, it will show up in Blackboard, and there will be comments in there as I demonstrated earlier. Under my grades, you will see the comments. It is really important to emphasize it's not just about the code being right in the U code sections of the lab. For every homework and lab, there is a rubric, and the rubric tells you the criteria by which you get the points. And you'll see the lab has 3 points total, and there's 4 criteria. So you must meet all four criteria to achieve a score of 3 on the lab. And the criteria are listed right here. So it's up to you. It's your responsibility to know what the criteria are and then what you need to do to get the score that you want on the lab. It's very easy to get 3s on the lab. It really just requires effort, but it's important and imperative that you participate in the metacognitive activities, which give us a measuring stick for what you're learning, and also talking about the questions that you have as you went about learning through the lab. On Wednesday or Thursday, depending on when your small group session is, you will do a small group activity. And the small group activities are all labeled small group in the weekly folder. And a small group activity is pretty much a computer program that we write from scratch. It involves some pretty heavy-duty problem solving. And we will always sort of suggest an approach to the problem solving. But most importantly, what happens in the small group, it is student-led. So there is these things in the notebook called prompts, and in the prompts, we will expect a student to answer these questions. And again, I want to emphasize more than anything, it's not really about being right. It's really about participating. Right, wrong isn't as important as participating, being part of the process, because we learn a lot by wrong answers. If everybody always has the right answer, there's really not any discussion or engagement that you can have. So I expect certain people, when they're called upon, to maybe not know the answer. And that's okay, because one of the things we might want to do in those situations is sort of explore how they got to the wrong answer so that we have a better understanding of how to find the right answers. As you get further along in the activity, eventually you will write some code. This again can be done by committee. Usually the entire class is functioning as a group as they work on this assignment. It's all about getting your hands on the keyboard, writing code, and learning as you write code from each other. That's the big point of small group. When you're done, every individual in small group must turn in their own copy of their work, because the most important thing that you can do in small group is work on the percussive nature of programming. That is, get your hands on the keyboard and type code. For you to work over the shoulder of another student and then just hand in the same thing isn't as effective. The most effective thing that you can do is to write the code yourself. To close out every week, there is a single homework assignment. The homework assignment is individual effort. That is, you should do it by yourself. You'll be solving a problem very similar to what you did in the small group, which you did with the entire class, but now you'll be doing it on your own. Most of the time in the homework, you will have seen part of the solution or a similar type of solution either in the lab, in the large group end-to-end example, or in the small group example. So it isn't something that you haven't seen before. It's just a little twist on that. In the homework assignment, you will be tasked with completing it to a solution. You might take a lot of dead ends. You might write a lot of code that doesn't work. What we're mainly interested in is the final solution that you put together. And then there's some questions that we ask you about the process. And then most importantly, there is a reflection area where you sort of talk about the trials and tribulations of the week, the unit, your comfort level with the unit, how you did on the homework assignment, what do you think you need to do to get better, all sorts of metacognitive type of activities like this. This is very important to completing the homework. Just like with the lab, if there are things that you're struggling with as you complete the homework, there is a section in the website where you can go and get homework advice. There's going to be a video for each of the particular lessons, and it will sort of nudge you in the right direction, give you some inspiration as to how to approach different problems that you may experience in the homework. It's not going to be as comprehensive as the lab, because that's not where we are anymore. We're now at a point where you need to screw on the old bolts of the thinking cap and really sort of hunker down and figure it out. But we will offer you prescriptive advice and tips as to ways that you can get yourself over the common problems that you would experience in the homework. Just like with the lab, you should be consulting the syllabus and looking at the particulars of the rubric for the homework. And there are 5 criteria, and you must meet all 5 criteria to get an assigned grade of 3. Again, it's your responsibility to know what the criteria are, and if you have satisfied the criteria. This is all what it means to be a responsible learner, is to understand the expectations of you, which are clearly outlined in the syllabus. The way you hand in the homework is exactly the same way you hand in the lab. There's a little script at the end. You just run the script, and it hands in your work. I would like to extend a personal thank you for watching this video. I hope you find it informative and helpful. I know there's a lot to unpack here, but trust me, when it will become second nature in a week or so. Wish you well in the semester and enjoy your programming journey. Goodbye.